Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Kristen Bomas, your host, and I'm joined today with Grace Alexander, and she has several questions that she is going to ask me. Can't tell you what they are because I don't know what they are, so we will all enjoy as this show unfolds. So Grace, today, I know you had a couple questions you wanted to ask.
Yes. Fortunately, you know everything about me, so you know kind of how I work, how I think about things, kind of what's going on in my life. But over the past week, I've kind of realized that there's some things that I think about, and I'm like, why do I think about this? Why do I ask myself this? Why does I go through this? One of the the first one that I thought of was, why do we go through these highs and lows in life? Why is it sometimes that I'm extremely high on life, I have everything's going well for myself, and then there's a good month and a half where I'm literally in the dumps, and I feel there's never an ending to it, but then there is, but then I never see the ending. So I worded it differently. I guess building off of it, what are things to think about when going through the low? And then I consider it a funk, being in a funk. Yeah. So not being clearly understanding what the funk is, but feeling like I'm not reaching my fullest self.
Right. Well, you're not alone. I honestly, I think that everybody out there is, you're probably totally understanding what she's saying. Especially, I think, when we're going through times in our life where we're going through something transitional, right? We're at a time in our life, you've just bought a home, you've got a career, but you're not settled with the company you're with, so you're in that transitional time in life, right? And so we have times where things are going well. Those are the times where we really get to bite into who we are and know who we are. There are times in our lives where things are going very well, and those times teach you when you are more in alignment with what you wish to experience. Then you hit these funks that you described. And there are times where life is challenging you, and it may not be clear enough to know exactly what is going on. If during those times you can just ask yourself, stay with the feeling, don't try to get away from it, don't judge it, just to stay with it for a while and say, gosh, I feel sad, I feel frustrated, I don't feel happy, I don't understand why I'm in this funk, but these are the feelings I can identify, right? And once you identify those feelings, it gives you a starting place to start to say, okay, where have I felt these in the past? There are so many things that can go into anybody's life at those funky times. It could be an element of aloneness, identity, sadness, unhappiness because you're not content with where you are, not feeling a sense of belonging, and the list goes on and on and on because everybody is so unique. So the very first thing we want to do is really just kind of identify why we're feeling the way we're feeling. Once we can identify that, we can ask ourselves where it came from. Where have I felt this before? Sometimes it's pretty self-explanatory, and sometimes it's a little bit more vague and difficult. I think when it happens over and over, if we can just really grasp that those are transitional times, right? When you hit those funks, your body is speaking to you. Life is speaking to you. It's telling you, okay, you're hitting a time where you can see the changes that need to happen for you to stay on that high, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of those changes are in your control or in your choices, right? Mm-hmm. You can make choices all day long to bring great things into your life. Sometimes it feels like it's out of control, but if we can remember that nothing in this life is in control, really, then we realize that it's all in the dream. What is it that you wish to experience? Define that. So that's why I say stay in the funk. Understand what's pulling you away. Understand that there's something there. And the more you can identify it in the awareness of it and really put the pieces together, the more you can dismantle it. Right? So awareness, I think, is the biggest step in the puzzle. Then once you get past the awareness, then we say, okay, so if I know I'm happy here and I know that I'm tapping on the truth of what I want in life here, how do I bridge this gap? Mm-hmm. What took me into this hole? What are the disappointments in life? What are the old beliefs and that are still kind of haunting me, that are pulling me away from staying there? So I think if I was you, that's where I would stand. It's a very, very, very natural part of the healing process. Like, we're just not, when we start out, we just aren't always on this high. Like, oh, life's great. And if we are, then there's something not being felt. And so the down times are just those opportunities that we have to really make our life that much better. If we didn't have the down times, we wouldn't push to make a change to make it better, would we?
Okay, but on the flip side, for me at least, like making a huge change in like maybe my job or what, like moving, doing something else, changing a hobby or something like that. And don't get me wrong, I do love change. I do love starting new things and kind of like just learning new stuff. But why is it so scary?
Unknown. Every time we make a change, and those were major changes you just gave. You know, you make a change in your career or the job that you're working at, you buy your first home, you move to a new area. I mean, come on, you made some major changes. So there's not a lot of known pieces there, right? And so there's some that's tangibly known. You know where your home is, where it's located, what's around that area. But you're still moving into an area that's all new. You're living on your own. You now own your own home. Like, what is that like inside? What is that going to bring to me? What's going to happen, right? I remember when I first moved back in my home, I had been married when I bought it, and then, we got divorced and I stayed. And I moved back in and it felt so different. And it felt so different because it was all new and it was all mine. And it's like, wow, this is all mine, but that means that I'm solely responsible. And it was really an odd feeling. Exciting, exhilarating, and scary all at the same time, because all of a sudden it's just me. So we sit back and we ask ourselves, what's hitting you right now, right? So some of that is, so you have been so on a high, right? And then all of a sudden it stops and you're like, okay, now what? Right? So
Yeah.
that's the lull after the great big party, right? It's like, okay, now what? And some of it is the unknown, right?
It's so funny. My mom asked me, or actually, she was talking to my dad, and my dad called me and was like, Mom asked the other day if, like, I thought you were happy in West Palm, because, like, before, I never really talked about moving up to West Palm, but then it kind of just worked out to where that's where it ended up being, and then I liked the area. And I, like, kind of sat there and I, like, was talking about it. I was like, I genuinely do. Like, I like my house. Like, it feels like home. And I didn't know if I was going to ever feel that, especially being so far from, like, my friends in Boca and, like, you and just the people around me that I've grown up with the past 4 years being down here. And, like, when I was telling my dad, I was like, yeah, like, I like the beach up here. Like, I like having different things to do and making new friends. I sat there, I was like, yeah, like, everything I was scared of, it's fine. Currently, I'm looking for a new job. I'm kind of moving forward in my career, and that's scary. That's like, oh, what if, like, I'm not good enough, or what if I'm not fully certified? Is it certified? Qualified for that job, or what if I don't like my coworkers there, and it's like a whole different thing. But
All of those what ifs come from your own fear of not having control over. In some cases, it can even be anxiety. Sometimes with anxiety, the what if is like pretty profoundly like, what if, what if, what if? But your what ifs are very much what people do, right? It's like, but what if I get there and it's not greener on the other side, right? Like, what if? And so that's the unknown that you look at. But you also mentioned in all of that you recognize, as you look back on when you moved up to West Palm, how you had all of these fears, these what ifs, and every single one of them panned out.
yeah, I do this every time though. Every time something changes, and not to get me wrong, I love change, like I said before, but it's so scary going into it.
It is, isn't it?
It is terrifying.
Well, you left all by yourself and came down to college down here in Florida with no connections, right? I mean,
Nothing.
That's huge. I gave up a college opportunity because I didn't want to go all by myself at 17, 18 years old. So I ended up at the University of Florida because my best friend was going there. That's why I went. Could have gone to Emory. No, that wasn't the option. Stayed at UF. So, but I loved it. I'm glad I'm a Gator, but it was not a choice made because I was ready for change. Now things would be different, but then it was scary. So you've done some really, really powerful things in life that have created changes and new beginnings that you've done all on your own. And so you mentioned that you have that fear of not being good enough, and yet, and you know that's on the inside of you, because when you look at what you've done in this lifetime, it's phenomenal. Every inch of it, right? We all have the parts that can change and grow. That's part of this lifetime, that we're going to have those feelings of, gosh, I don't know how to do this, and what if I'm not completely qualified? Well, yeah, what if you're not completely qualified? There's a learning curve. That's why we talk about learning curves. None of us go into a new job completely qualified. We go in on a learning curve. Mm-hmm. That's why they train us, because no matter what our skills were, they want us to do it their way, regardless. And so no matter what, you're going to step in and learn. So if you can just take a look at everything you've been through and what you're saying about even the new job, and realize that you had to go into the new home, you had to learn the area, meet the people, see what opportunities and resources were around you, and acclimate. So it had a learning curve. So everything has a learning curve. So ask yourself, as you go into change, what's your favorite part about the learning curve? Shift the way you're thinking about it. Don't take your what ifs and say, okay, those are all going to be there. It's all part of the learning curve. It's all part of what's going to happen for me when I walk through. Some of those, when you look at the culture in a business, when you interview, you want to ask some questions. And this is not what you're asking me right now, but it is important to think about this. That when you go into the interview, they're going to ask about you. They're going to give you the opportunity to ask about them. And some of those questions are logistics and things that you simply ask, okay, what's this, what's that? But the culture of the business is going to let you know if you fit in with the people around you. Personalities are going to change, but if the culture is really built on a team approach versus a hierarchical approach, that it's more of a family atmosphere rather than a performance atmosphere, that everybody is productive driven, but everybody takes responsibility for their own, like, what do they say? They're going to all say their own thing. Mm-hmm. But that culture is so critically important, that, how do they embrace or not embrace the employee and the way you fit in? Is that an important part of the culture of that company? And so whatever is important to you, ask yourself, what do you want your work culture atmosphere to be like for you? What's the experience you wish to have while you're there? And then ask the questions to see if that's the culture you're stepping into. That way you're walking into a place where you're going to have great support and teamwork, and everybody's working to bring each individual a success in their own individual track, but working as a team to help each individual out. So ask yourself of all of that, what is important to you, mm-hmm. right? What do you like? What do you not like? What do you need? What do you not need? And so those things take care of that aspect of the learning curve that seems the most vague because it's culture oriented. But you can ask the questions necessary to give you some sort of feel of what you're walking into.
What would you tell yourself, warn yourself, and give advice to your younger self? What would it be?
The first thing I would tell myself is don't get married before 26, because because I got married young. Loved my husband. He's a good guy. He's a great guy. And love that I had the opportunity with him. But I was too young. And so much change occurred in my 20s that by the time I was 30, that's when I knew what I wanted. So I would tell myself to give myself time to really embrace me. That's the first thing I would say. But that's because I got married very young. Don't be afraid to follow your dreams, because that's where we find ourselves persisting and going forward. So know your dreams and set out to follow them. If I could have known in my 20s to pay attention to my experience, I would have changed so much of what I did. God only knows where I'd be today, because I wouldn't have spent so much worried about everybody else, literally worried about everybody else, taking care of them, making sure that I was good enough for them, making sure their opinion of me mattered and was good. I would I would have found my freedom much faster from all of that weighted limitation of expectation and other people. I would have said to myself, having fun in life is the most important thing that I could do for myself. So if I'm not having fun, if I'm not loving what I'm doing, loving the relationships I'm in, loving myself, then something needs to change. Because fun and having fun is so important. I love to laugh, I love to have fun, I love adventures, I love life. And I can't imagine all of those years where you suffer and you're not having fun because of all of the expectations and the things you think you should be doing that go against who you are, that would allow you to feel like you're having fun. You know?
Well, I think I'm still caught up in the whole, like, you gotta do this, you gotta get this done, you gotta, like, well, if you do this, like, people are gonna, like, probably think this way about you. And
who cares?
I've actually kind of gotten over that a little bit.
I bet you have.
So I have a really good, so you know Evie, one of my good friends, I'll like randomly do stuff and I'll like post it on social media and she's just like, what are you doing? She's like, what, you're in such a random place. Like, what are you doing? And I'm honestly like, whatever I was doing, I had a lot of fun doing that. Like, I don't care. And I can't remember. It was something weird the other day.
You can see from the question alone that she puts that there's a limitation. Can't you feel it? It's like, whoop, like, you know, like, I'm having fun. I'm going to post this on social media. I'm going to do my own thing. And then all of a sudden, what are you doing? It's like, well, let me think about this. Like, why? You're having fun. Yeah. Sometimes that's the only answer you can give. It was fun. Like, that's it.
There was, I tend to always do this. Even in high school, I had people be like, no one ever knows what you're doing. Like, you're always so secretive, and you like come out and like not and like do something random, and like you're like, when did you do this? And I'm like, I just do it. I also am not the person to wait on someone.
Good. Oh, I love that.
If I'm going to the, I know I'm going to the beach Saturday, and someone's like, oh, like, I want to come with you, and be like, okay, like, yeah, I'll probably go around 10. If I text you at 10 and you're not up at 10:30, I'm going to the beach. Like, you can meet me there. Yeah. I'm like, sorry, not waiting for you. Or sometimes I'll go watch the sunset by myself at the beach, and I'll like put something on my story, and someone will be like, oh, like, you should have let me know. I would have gone with you. And I'm like, that would have been like an 8th thought if I were to do that, because I just like want to do something and go do it. Right. And I've kind of like learned that that's kind of what keeps me happy, like just doing whatever. And if I want to go do something, I want to go to the farmer's market, I want to go downtown, I want to drive up to Stewart to see something, or I want to go out to the Everglades or go to the West Coast. Like, I just do it. And if you want to invite someone, I can.
But you're comfortable in your skin.
I am.
And you enjoy the company you keep. Most people don't. I just today had a session with somebody who gets bored like that. They come home, they sit down, and they're young. They sit down on their couch and they turn on the TV and they hit the clicker. Well, I'll see what's on. Like, what?
I do get that sometimes.
Do you make a choice to sit down with the TV to have that kind of an evening? Or do you find yourself coming home and not knowing what to do, and so you let the TV do that to you?
Oh, no, it's more of like I'll sit down and I'm like, there's so many things I need to do right now. Sitting down and possibly watching something on TV sounds like a better plan. And I'll sit down and I'm like, honestly, I don't even watch TV. I'm finished my show. There's no movies that I want to watch. Like,
right? But I finished my show. So you have a show you like. You're not sitting down waiting for the TV to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You're sitting down, you're going to watch your show, that's what you're going to watch, and then you're going to so you're taking a break from everything you want to do. So that is you knowing what it is you'd like to do. That's the relationship you have with yourself. The most important relationship you have in your life is the relationship you have with yourself. That's probably something else I would have told myself in my 20s, because I didn't know that then. I thought it was with everybody else. So you have that. Waiting on others, even thinking about others before you go do something, because you enjoy yourself and your own company, you don't go down that path. Like you said, that would be my 8th thought. Like, I'm already at the beach for 10 minutes before that becomes even a thought, right?
At that point, I wouldn't even think to even text you.
I know,
I'm
right?
like, oh,
Well, now that I know, maybe I will, and I'm not going to wait for you. I'm going to be at the beach. If you'd like to join me, that would be great. If you want to go in the same car, then be at my house no later than. And again, waiting. I tell everybody, don't wait in life, because it has this illusion of sitting still while you're waiting for somebody to get there or to do or whatever, and you're not, because life doesn't stop to wait. But you've stopped. You've stopped something inside to wait. Whereas if you keep going, that other person is going to join in, at their time, in their way, or they're not. And when you're comfortable in your own skin and you're committed to yourself and the plans you make, you don't wait. There was a time I dated a guy. We had, that was probably the best dating relationship I ever had. And one day he had to end the relationship because he was going to go back with his ex-wife. He had been divorced for many years. And I was like, I understand, I get it. You had kids in the relationship, go for it. And when you're done, if you want to come back together, fine. We'll see where I'm at and we'll do whatever. And that's exactly the attitude I had, that I'm going to continue on with my life. When you come back, if it's something that fits in, great, but if it doesn't, it doesn't, right? So we keep moving. Somebody goes out of our life, they come back into our life. They go out, they come back in. When they come back in, they're going to meet us where we are. If we've been waiting, they've made all of these changes, we've thwarted our own growth because we're sitting waiting for an external source to occur that may or may not occur. So it's not literal, but it is figuratively correct. So we don't give to ourselves when we do that. So I loved that you said that. I don't wait. I just don't wait. I just keep right on going. That's huge.
And sometimes if I have friends that are like, okay, hey, let's go to the beach, or let's do this and this, and I have to sit there and I have to think about it. I'm like, well, I want to do this, and this today. And then I'm like, okay, that can all wait. But it kind of makes my heart race when people kind of interrupt that.
Yeah.
But it's not like I didn't want, I don't want to. I want to, but I'm like, when I'm gonna have that time to clean and eat and all that stuff. And a lot of times I don't like going out to eat because I bought groceries, so I want to eat at home and not waste them. So I'm I kind of freak out a little bit, and I'm like, it's fine.
That's a change that you don't particularly like. A change to your plans takes you a little bit of jostling to get comfortable. Something happens in that change to plans that I would say to look at.
It always happens to me. It doesn't matter what it is. If someone had dinner plans, which I'm always ends up being okay with it. I don't care. If we had dinner plans and someone's like, okay, I can't do tonight. I have this going on. I'm usually okay, I don't care. But for a second, I'm like, okay, well, I've already planned dinner and lunch the next day, and okay, so what am I going to do for dinner? And then you could literally cook at home, Grace. You're fine. I don't know why, in my head, it just...
There's something about that that's a hiccup. I mean, we'd have to really ask some questions to figure out what happens there, but you can see there's a hiccup that occurs from... You get a plan, you create this, okay, I know what I'm doing, right? This is the knowing again. This is the plan. This is the predictability. This is there are no what ifs, okay? I'm going to do this, and I'm having dinner with so-and-so, and that's what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, okay, that's not there. It's I'm ungrounded.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do now? Right? That, you were hooked onto this idea, now it's gone, and for a few minutes you're free floating, going, what do I do? What do I do? Then you catch yourself, you're I'm perfectly fine, just pivot, right?
Yeah.
But, and you're going to be okay. There's something in your head that knows it, but emotionally the first thing you feel is this ungrounded kind of free floating, oh God, what am I going to do now? So that's a historic piece. You could go back and figure that out, but that's something that you would want to say, okay, where the hell is this coming from that I'm feeling blah, blah, blah.
And I've done a really good job of kind of nixing it. Just being you're fine. But it definitely, initial is
See?
So
Everything
Monday, I was okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to make dinner. I have, a meal ready to, be made. I get home, and I'm okay, I actually have time to go for a little bit of, a little run, kind of work out, trying to get back in my groove with that one. I've been struggling in that area. But, go for a run, and my roommate's boyfriend calls me and is hey, you want to go Top Golf? And I'm like, yes. And then I'm like, wait, dinner. Wait, I was going to do this tonight. Wait. And then I was like, and I kind of like paused on the phone. And he's like, Grace, like, are you coming? And I was like, yeah, let me just put clothes on. I had clothes on. I just had to put a shirt on because I just ran in like a sports bra and shorts. Yeah. But I was like, yeah, when are you going? And then I'm sitting there like, I haven't eaten dinner. And I'm like, well, I can eat there.
You're having this whole conversation in the background,
like,
right?
Thirsty, like, oh, like I could, I just, it's crap in my head. And then the next night, we were gonna get together, but then we didn't. But that one didn't bother me. That one was just like, okay, I'll just go home and make last night's dinner. And then I already said, like, before, like, I come over, I'll, like, go for a run real quick. And didn't do either of that. I ended up, one of my best friends in kindergarten's mom is moving her younger son into college here. And she calls me, and she's like, hey, I'm in town. Would you want to do dinner tonight? We're going to the meat market at 7:15. Really good. But I'm like in my work clothes, and I took like 4 walks that day, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't need to go like this. And I didn't have any clothes in my car, and I live 45 minutes away.
I know.
Which unfortunately I only live, it was 5 o'clock when I got off work. But even that in my head, I was like, but I was like, yeah, I'm going. Of course I'm going.
I would say to you to ask yourself about expectations. We learn them. So you're going to want to say that you put expectations on yourself, but really you don't. We set goals for ourselves, but when we find ourselves having shoulds inside our own head, we've learned it. What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do? You learn to think that way. So ask yourself about expectations. See where that takes you in that whole mindset of you have this one plan and then somebody's offering you a hard right. Then you go through this whole checklist of, okay, I can do this, I want to do this, but can I really say no to all of this? Is it okay if I don't do all of this? And then if I say no over here, is that okay? Because that's also an expectation, right? That's going to be hidden in there. And the other person may not have it, but you may have grown up thinking that expectations exist there. Mm-hmm. So you've got that. I'm just wondering about that. I would look at that. And is it okay to really please yourself first? Right? Expectations first. Then, is it really okay for me to truly do what I wish to do rather than what I should do?
It always is.
That's your head. Are you allowed to do what your head knows is okay?
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of like, we're in high school and all of a sudden we get a call from the kids and they're like, hey, we just decided that we're all going to go to this movie and we're leaving at 6. We tell our mom, okay, everybody's getting together for the 6 o'clock movie. Well, have you finished your homework? Well, have you done this? Well, have you done that? Like, no, well, you can't go to the movie until you finish all that. You've got to get that done. And now all of a sudden, you're in this quandary. Like, okay, well, what do I do? Now, do I lie to my mom and say my homework is done so I can go to the movie, and then I've got to come back and get the homework done because then I've lied to my mom and I can't lie to my mom now. I've got to, you know what I mean? Like, off to the races in the head.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that kind of thing
that probably definitely has to do with it, because I grew up that way too. I was like, you're not doing anything until all of this is done, and then
right,
you can go.
Right. You see?
But that's just, I mean, we were all a lot of us were grown up that way.
Of course,
too.
but those are the old beliefs that were put upon us that we bought into. Right now, all of a sudden, we're putting those expectations, you can call them rules if you want, but in this case, expectations upon ourselves, and it's not from us to us, it's from what we learned, putting it upon us. And it's so habitual that we want to do the right thing, that we have to do what's obedient, we have to do what's right, we have to do what we're told, we have to, whatever it is. It's like, how do we free ourselves from that? Like, you do it, you do go play Top Golf, you do what you want to do, but not without going through that ajita first, that
Mhm.
shake up, that's not really what ajita is, but
I will
yeah.
say though, being able to get all your stuff done and then going somewhere.
Oh, so much better.
And it's just like a
Yep.
weight off your shoulders. Like, I have nothing to do. I come home and take a shower and plop on the couch and do nothing. I don't have to come home and do my homework or whatever.
I know.
Like work, clean, mop, take dog out, whatever it is.
And when we do it, it's because it's for us, nobody else. So it's interesting because when you look at everything that you've talked about so far, you've looked at all of this change in various ways, whether it's change in life, going from the ups and the downs, to changes in life, going to, new home, new job, new whatever, to change in plans. And all of it is change because we're in a constant state of change. And so even though we talked about various topics, the theme that wove its way through everything is change. How do we prepare ourselves for change? And the best way is to really start to understand the concept of surrender, where we lean back against life and know it's going to carry us through, so that we let go of this need to control. Because what causes those hiccups are the expectations, the control factors, the pieces that come from history that kind of limit us or try to limit us in some way. And so you're having the hiccups and you're breaking free of them beautifully. I wish everybody at least did that. So now you just want to listen to self and start to ask, what some of these change points are about for you, where they come from, what they're hooked onto from the past, what's kind of dragging along with it, right? That you can flip away. But the mindset that you've got is excellent. You're definitely, you're noticing it, you're aware of it, you're making conscious decisions to go in the direction of grace and not what you were told is the right thing to do, whatever that means. So you're making great decisions. You always have. So everything is a choice in this lifetime. Even no choice is a choice, right? So when you choose to follow you and to do what's going to be fun and fulfilling in your life in some way, you can't go wrong. That was really cool.
That was.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
of
really
course.
appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And until next time, may the magic be yours.